Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass on navigating leadership transitions, moving from an individual contributor to a leader. Before we begin, please share with us where is it that you're joining us from. I see that a lot of people is slowly joining the session, so I know that I am sitting here in Singapore. Dr. Jose is joining us from France. We have some people also from India. So don't be shy, write in the comments. I really want to hear from you. Where is it that you're sitting at? I can see that Yi Ang is joining us from Singapore, Sarah from Angola. We have Josefina from Angola as well. Wow. Golam from Bangladesh, Mark from Los Angeles, somebody joining us from Vietnam, from Japan, Philippines, Germany. Wow, we have a very international session today. That's amazing. Cambridge, Messi Nisar, Pakistan. We also, if you can, please write in the comments a little bit about your background and industry that you're joining us from. We always want to know, a little bit more about yourself so that we can make our sessions as relevant as possible for all of you. I can see somebody's also joining us from Poland. Thomas is working in publishing. Yi Ang is in healthcare. Lars Hai is joining us from Singapore. Wow, amazing. I'm really happy to read all the comments, and thank you so much for participating here with us. We really want to have a very interactive session with you. Paul is in engineering. Somebody's joining us from Oman. Wow, really very international session today. I think this is the most international attendance that I've ever read. Normally it's quite, either Singapore or Europe, but here I can see that people is joining us from everywhere, which makes me really happy. Thank you so much for being here. I can see Josefina share with us that she's a teaching assistant working with young learners. Amazing. Sarah works in healthcare industry as a business manager. Golam works in textile, Japanese sewing thread company. Roshan is in data analytics and business intelligence for healthcare. Hi, Kuntal. Thank you for joining us all the way from England. I can see that you are a geospatial analyst. Wow. Okay, before we begin our session, allow me to play a video for you. So let me share my screen quickly. And here we go. We'll be right back. Perfect. Thank you so much. I can see that Radcliffe is still writing to us, marketer and entrepreneur from Jamaica, now living in Japan. Very good. Thank you so much for participating, and hi again to everyone that is just joining us. Welcome once again to Navigating Leadership Transitions, moving from an individual contributor to a leader. And this masterclass is designed to provide you with insights on how to uncover key leadership skills and how to apply them, as well as insights about managing conflict, delegation, and challenges, especially expectations. But we're also going to be touching a little bit about the importance of networking and having a support group. My name is Maribel Colmenares Martinez. I'm the Director of Marketing and Partnerships at Upgrad, and I will be your host for today. I am really excited to see so many of you joining us for today's masterclass. And before we get started, I would like to share that at the end of the session, we will be having time for Q&A. So feel free to start typing all your questions in the Q&A module below. And do note that this masterclass is being recorded so that you can watch the on-demand version on Upgrad's event website later. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, allow me to share that Upgrad is Asia's largest integrated learning, skilling, and career development company that has touched over 7 million total registered learners across over 100 countries. To date, And we're enjoying a strong network of more than 20,000 recruitment partners, as well as an enterprise arm with a clientele of 3,000 corporate partners worldwide. On top of that, UpGrad has over 300 direct global university partners, one of them being ESGCI. And towards the end of this masterclass, my colleague Bikram Aditya Kapoor, who takes care of programs at UpGrad, will join us briefly to share with you more about the programs available to support you in your learning journey, and of course, in leading smart organizations and the programs that we have for you in this regard. UpGrad was formed to impact lives of working professionals by helping them upskill while they work. And we are very happy to be a trusted lifelong learning partner, offering upskilling opportunities that are online, flexible, portable, and affordable. We take pride in transforming people who transform businesses and in supporting businesses to transform their people. Learners being at the core of everything that we do is the main reason that excites me to bring guest speakers like the one I am having here with us today. So allow me to briefly introduce to our amazing guest speaker for the day, which is none other than Dr. Jose Roussel, Head of DBA Development at ESGCI Paris School of Business, joining us all the way from France. Thank you so much for being here, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Jose Roussel is the Head of DBA Development at ESGCI Paris School of Business. Dr. Jose got his PhD in Finance and Management from Université Paris Dauphine, I hope I said it correctly, and certification to supervise doctoral research, HDR, from the Université Paris 2, Panthéon-Assas. His research focuses on finance and monetary policies, human capital, and the digitization of management. He has authored 5 books and published multiple research articles in peer-reviewed journals, such as the Journal of Developing Areas, the International Journals of Emerging Markets, the International Journal of Business and Social Science, Human Resource Planning, and the JIT. Dr. Jose, welcome once again to our masterclass. I am really very happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much. Just as a correction, my first name is pronounced Jos, so the E is not pronounced. So no issue.
For letting me know, Dr. Jos. Okay. See, I am from Mexico, so we do pronounce like Jose, right? But yeah. Jos. Okay. I'll try my best to get it right throughout the session. So, as I shared before, today's masterclass aims to provide you with essential skills and mindset required to transition from an individual contributor role to a leadership position. And I'm sure that everyone joining us today can't wait to hear from you, Dr. Jos. Perhaps to begin, could you please give us a quick summary of your own journey moving from individual contributor to a leader?
Well, so a quick, let's try to make it quick. So obviously I'm in academia and also in consulting. So the first thing, of course, was education. You know, when you're talking about moving from one individual, one person, and becoming a leader, I think there is going to be a mix about ambition, vision, and education. So probably you need to provide the best you have in terms of your education to sort of make sure that your vision is going to be consistent with your desire, your ambition. So I think as far as I'm concerned, just to make it quickly, my idea was first to try to have an original career in ideas, in terms of producing ideas, producing knowledge. So academia was kind of a natural pathway, but I also wanted to make sure that those ideas and this knowledge that I was eager to generate would also have an impact, would be relevant in terms of the real life, so to speak, because sometimes you have this idea that academia could be sort of an ivory tower away from the real world. And I wanted to have this ability to connect the real world, the business world, basically, with academia, and therefore the path was kind of quite clear as far as it was concerned.
Thank you so much for sharing. And if we were to dive a little bit deeper into your personal experience, can you share a specific challenge that you faced when you were transitioning from individual contributor to a leadership role?
Well, I think it's always the issue of being, confident, not too much confidence. So that's always a fine line between confidence and the challenges that you will go through, because you have always to be confident that you're going to make it, that you're going to make it through, that you're going to be successful. But you have also to be aware that this confidence should not blind you about all of the challenges that you will go through and all of the setbacks that will happen, because there's not going to be a smooth, path, bed of roses kind of track. It's there's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some big speed bumps sometimes, but you have to always learn from those. So I think the leadership is going to grow through some of the setbacks, some of the challenges that you have to go through, but it must be anchored to confidence, because you need to have this vision of yourself in the future. You need to understand that you're going to be on the track to grow as a person, to become a leader. And this confidence should not become arrogance, should not be this inability to learn from the mistakes that you're going to make and from the setbacks that you will go through. So I think that's a key point here, because there's going to be some challenges, and you have to be aware that you will learn from the challenges, that it will help you become a better leader. It sounds like a paradox, but in fact, it's not really a paradox. It's just the way it works. You need to go through those challenging times to grow as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I can resonate with what you're sharing. And talking a little bit about confidence, how did you, apart from confidence, how did you navigate the hurdles or challenges you encountered during this transition?
Well, it's always about setting objectives, new objectives. I think as soon as you have a challenge, obviously you have to reset some of the things that you used to be doing, because when you have a setback, when you have something which is not working according to plan, it means that maybe you have to change some of the variables or some of the parameters with which you were used to be working successfully up to a certain point. So the idea is that as soon as you have a setback or a challenge, then it means, okay, you have to think about, what should I change? What are the parameters I didn't focus enough on in order to resume a successful path toward your ambition and your vision as a leader. So I think that's where it's a bit challenging sometimes, to have this ability to see the thing that you didn't do right at the time. And also what's very challenging is that what has sometimes led you to a high level of success in a certain environment, in a certain set of circumstances, may not be working anymore in another set of circumstances. And this is something difficult to understand. And I think it's working both for individuals and also for companies, because you have those stories about people, not willing to change some of their ways because their ways have been leading them to great success. And at some point, the environment in which they have, flourished and thrived has changed. And those rules, those habits, those patterns are no longer working in the new environment. And if you're not able to realize that, then you run the risk of, losing traction and basically failing and missing your objective. So you have those stories for companies as well. And I think that's the key point is to be able to understand that sometimes you have to change some of the parameters with which you're working in your life in order to resume the path towards success.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think adaptability, it's a very important skill in life, and the only constant that we have is change, and now coming to us more rapid than ever, right? So if we were to move now into mindset and skill set differences, What do you think are the key mindset shifts that an individual needs to embrace when transitioning from individual contributor to leader?
Um, I think that number one, that there is probably a wide array of skill sets or mindset for that, because in fact, leadership is coming in different ways, different flavors. If you look at, you say, top leaders, for example, around the world, you would see that they have different personalities. And it's always been a key question mark in terms of leadership, is whether it's something which can be defined and codified in a limited set of, say, skills, or having like the right stuff, like you're born, whether it's something you're born with, whether it's innate, or whether it's something you acquire through education. Obviously, the answer probably is a bit of both. But when you look at leadership styles, obviously you have different types of leadership styles, and therefore I think the key skill set anyway is that a great leader has to be very much cognizant of the environment in which she or he is working in. So you have to understand the people with whom you're working with, what type of people you work with, you relate with, and what kind of organization you're working in. You need to be aware of that in order to be able to navigate through this, because the idea is that different organizations require different skill sets to become a leader. So if you're working in the banking industry, if you're working in the banking industry, if you're working in the advertising industry, probably leadership skills would be different. Because a bank is not going to be expecting the same kind of leadership skills like maybe in an advertising media company. They would not dress the same, they would not speak the same, and therefore they would require different leadership skills. So I think leadership will, first of all, has to be grounded in key awareness of the people with whom you work with, and the organization, the cultural, structural dimensions of the organization in which you're working.
Thank you for sharing. That's very interesting. And if we then were to think about preparing for the transition, what strategies or steps can aspiring leaders take to prepare themselves for the shift to a leadership role?
I think there's the steps is that you have to be ready to leave your comfort zone. So there must be a acceptance that there's going to be some challenges, there's going to be some uneasiness in this process, because leadership is about leading, and leading means taking risk, and therefore there must be acceptance that it's not going to be always winning. You have this dynamic where you take the lead, therefore you take a risk, and therefore maybe it's not going to be successful all the time, but you have to be willing to do it anyway. That's the first thing, I guess, to accept taking risk, not crazy risk like a gamble that is just pure random chance, but at least to be able to accept that there's going to be some risk taken to at some point in your transition from the position you have and the leadership position you aspire to. So I think that's the first thing. And the second is also to skill up, to have maybe stronger credentials, to make sure that this position to which you aspire to which you want to achieve a career, to target this position that you target, is going to be seen as, I would say, in line with your credentials, in line with your skills. Obviously the education that you have, plus the experience that you have piled on. So education plus experience is going to be there to sort of put the credentials on the table and say, look, I have what it takes to do what I aspire doing. I have what it takes to fill that leadership position I am aiming at. So that's risk-taking. You need to have this willingness to take some risk, and you also need to back it up with credentials, and the credential will come from your education, and your experience. So you need to have the right combination of education and experience to make that possible.
And if you were to give an advice to the people that's here with us today, how can they assess their current skills and identify areas for development before making the transition?
Well, I guess first you have to be aware of the skills you have, both by the industry in which you're working. So you've been working. So obviously experience, professional experience is providing you with skills. It would be what called soft skills, the ability to interact with people, to communicate, to convey a message, and so on. And also the hard skills, which are more technical skills, usually linked to the industry in which you work and linked also to the education that you have been acquiring over the last few years. And therefore, if you think that you're in this position that you're in this sort of transition phase between what you do today and who you are today and what you aspire doing and who you aspire being, then there must be like a sort of an analysis of what's missing. And therefore, is it like I don't have enough experience, or is it I don't have the right credentials in terms of education or educational background? Because maybe I need like this additional like brand on my shoulder in a way, like this additional element that's going to be making me stand out and being more visible from, say, my superiors, for example, from top management. Because there's one thing is you have the skills, to have the competence and the knowledge, but there is something else, which is to make sure that people will be aware of it. That especially top management, or at least the managerial people that you interact with, will be cognizant of your skills and competence. So I guess education is one way to make it visible, that you have achieved something special, that you have achieved something very challenging, and that therefore it puts you like in a different category. It puts you in a different place, and it makes you a lot more credible in terms of achieving, for example, a leadership position.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. But sometimes new leaders do not have the luxury of time to prepare for that transition, right? So they suddenly find themselves in leadership positions. And if we were to talk about this, right, and then think about common pitfalls and mistakes, what are some common pitfalls or mistakes that new leaders often encounter during the transition, and how can they be avoided?
I guess the mistakes could be, number one, not being fully aware of the people they're going to lead, because as we often say, leading by example. But in order to lead by example, you first need to understand the people that you would have to lead, and therefore there's like a game of give and take. That is, you have to make the first step to actually know them, to learn how to know them. Of course, if, for example, it depends on context, but if say you're a leader, a new leader in a organization that you're not very much familiar with, or the people that you have to lead, you don't know them very well, then you have to make a big effort, an investment into connecting with the people and gaining their trust. Because leadership is going to be successful providing that followers are trusting the leader. Because if you think about leadership, therefore there is this word leader and to lead, but obviously if leader is working because you have followers, there is this dynamic between leadership and the followers, between the leader and the followers. And therefore, one of the key tenets, I guess, of successful leadership is the fact that followers will trust you. And therefore, you have to invest in that relationship. And it may take a bit of time, especially if you're in a new organization and you don't know very well the people you have to lead. It might be a bit faster if, of course, you know them quite well. But nevertheless, there must be an investment in that relationship, because trust has to be built, and it could be quick if you, if you know people and people know you already from the past and they have already some kind of trust in you. But sometimes it has to be, I would say there must be an investment to make that possible. And always be aware that it's not always that you're not going to always make the best decisions, because when you're a leader, you have to make decisions at some point. Some leaders tend to be, not real leaders in that they're afraid of making decisions, because sometimes you can have people in position of power who only should have to make some decisions at some point, and or reluctant to make them, and always look for some subordinates to make the decision instead of making that. But therefore, and one of the reasons is sometimes people are afraid of making a wrong decision, and it's going to happen sometime. But I think it's better to make a decision, especially in times where there are some challenges. When times are really, really very tough, the key, I would say, attribute of a leader is this ability to make decisions under pressure, not in an impulsive way, by taking, of course, into account the data and the advice, but any way to make decision as a function of your vision, because that ultimately what's going to be the major point.
Yeah, so lack of decision-making, lack of connections. What other common challenges are faced by new leaders? And perhaps share with us some strategies on how leaders can overcome them.
Well, I think some of the challenges is related to big, massive shifts that you didn't expect. Because leadership normally is about, you have a vision, so you expect what's going to happen. You have this vision of the company or your team going forward, but sometimes things happen and you didn't expect them. The unexpected, the surprise, the genuine surprise, the black swan, as we say. And obviously, it's usually a crisis mode for an organization or for people, and therefore it has to be overcome. One way or another, because if you don't want to deal with it, you're going to be crushed. You're going to be, it's going to be very, very challenging. So that's certainly one of the things which is very typical for a leader, is that when you have those massive unexpected events, which could come from maybe a merger with another company that you didn't see coming. You were working in an organization and all of a sudden it's going to be taken over by another one. It could be, of course, because of technology, you're working in an industry which is going to be disrupted by new competitors or new solutions, new technologies. It could be, because of people, that you all of a sudden have to work with people who could be, I would say, challenging, people or difficult people, and therefore I think the answer has to be, how do you realign yourself in order to meet those challenges, to take those challenges, because they're not going to go away. The easy I think the easy answer and the easy way would be to say to procrastinate and to hope that it's going to go away on its own, but it's not going to be the case. So you have to take the challenge head on and to try to quickly identify what you have to change from your side in order to make that successful. You can see that in some companies. The companies that didn't manage to do that, let's say Kodak, for example, even though they sort of invented the digital camera, they didn't really grasp the speed and the extent to which the photo industry and the camera industry would be turned upside down by this, digital innovation, and they were driven out of business because of that. Because the reluctance to admit change was so strong, so prevalent, that it sort of froze their ability to change their organization, because they had some great products, making a lot of money, so they didn't want to challenge this. And instead they lost a lot of money eventually, because you didn't accept this new trend that was nevertheless visible. So yeah, I think it's and nowadays we have lots of, I would say, game-changing events or game-changing trends. You have digitization of management, you know, artificial intelligence. You have also demographic changes in many different nations. You have new companies. So the also for geopolitical challenges, you know, that would not have been taken into account so much, you know, like 5 years ago, for example. And nowadays, you know, you have to be cognizant that the world is shifting in terms of geopolitics, that you see that you look at what happened to companies doing business in Russia. You know, all of a sudden you have to realign and to do something different. I mean, it's so we have to be aware that new types of problems could emerge. You know, we had the pandemic, and we saw that a virus can be very challenging indeed. Now we have geopolitical issues, you know, especially between some Western companies and Western nation, and let's say, for example, as of today, China as well. So it is leadership means that you need to be aware that there's going to be some other types of problems going forward, and you have to be able to find the new types of solutions, to invent new solutions instead of using existing ones. I think that's where it's really critical, because when you have new set of circumstances and new challenges, what was successful before may not be successful tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So expect the unexpected, and again, be ready to adapt and be ready to adapt quickly. So one of the challenges of becoming a leader is also that individuals find themselves all of a sudden managing former peers. How can new leaders effectively manage and motivate their former peers who are now their subordinates?
Yeah, so that's very challenging, because there is a fine line to walk between friendship and the trust that you have with people, the trust relationship that you have with people, and of course the objectives that you have. And the temptation could be, especially when you have this ability to lead, is to manipulate, you know, people. And because, you know, when you look at the dark side of leadership, and you look at, because, you know, there's always a good side and a bad side. You know, you could find leaders who have this ability to manipulate people, to manipulate emotions, and to basically lead by deceiving people. And obviously that is extremely negative and extremely toxic in a company or at large in a nation, for example. You know, when you have those kind of behavior, because it's going to backfire at some point, and also it's going to lead to a lot of pain for the people that you're leading. So the challenge is that when you have connections with people, emotional connections, like you have friends, people that you know, you have to be aware that at some point, maybe sometimes you would have to overcome maybe the reluctance to say things the way they are. You know, because sometimes people have, you know, they fear upsetting a friend, and therefore to tell something negative or something which is not like something that probably you're not willing to hear too often. I think the leader has to be able to offer this, for example, to say that, you know, something is not successful, something is not working according to plan, we're not really happy with that, and to put that in a context which it has to be positive, to show that there is a way to do it. We're going to help you, we're going to assist you, we're going to provide you with the guidance and the support to do it. So this sort of combination of telling things the way they are, for example, when they're not good, to be able to tell it that it's not what we want, it's not what we expected, and to also be aware that sometimes it's the leader's fault, that there must be some responsibility that the leader has to take, and to show that there is a way to success. And to avoid, therefore, this emotional manipulation, which could be extremely toxic in the workplace and extremely counterproductive over the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talking about manipulation, what communication or relationship building strategies can be used to navigate potential challenges with former peers?
I think the way you could navigate those relationships has to be based on basic rules, like you cannot, I would say, manipulate and lie within the company, especially with people that you are trusting you and know you a lot, have respect and trust in you. And I think you have also, which is very difficult to do, be a good listener. That is, you need to be aware of what people have in their mind, because this is not always an easy thing to do, especially in a power relationship where you have leaders and followers. When you have a leader and followers, it's not easy for followers sometimes to voice concern, to to criticize, or to say that they're unhappy about this or that. And I think a good leader has to be aware of some of the issues that might go in the team that you're leading. So I think listening to people, listening to the challenges that they go through is key to a successful leadership role. Because if you're not aware of what's going on, if you're not connected to the challenges of your followers, of your team, then probably you're going to make bad decisions and you're going to crash at some point. So that's very difficult. So it could be done in a formal way. For example, you could have, you could hire consultants to administer questionnaires and to do a survey within the company. And but a good leader has this ability to, because of the trust relationship, to be able to understand that sometimes there are some issues, some concerns, and it's better to know them as soon as they're becoming visible, because they could disrupt the team. That could be a cause for concern, of course, in terms of efficiency, in terms of cohesion, because if you have lots of problems which are not spoken out, which are not dealt with, because if the problem is not dealt with, they're not going to go away. They're just going to, get bigger and more toxic. So if you're not aware of that, it's going to be a big challenge. So you need to have this ability to listen and to get the temperature, the room temperature from your teammates, from the followers.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about building relationship and gaining trust, and just now you touched on the importance of self-awareness. What are some practical steps or exercises that can help individuals enhance their self-awareness during this transition?
I think there's, for example, talking with your peers on I would say in an informal way, communicating with them. So sometimes maybe it could be with digital way, or sometimes in person, to get to know them, asking questions maybe about their life, their if they have some struggles, and if they have some issues. But I think more generally, instead of the idea of having those informal conversations with some of your teammates, to have this better awareness of who they are, what they're bringing to the company, and the way they can grow. Because I think ultimately a good leader is someone that's going to make other people better. That's you have this ability to make decisions. You have this ability to organize, to forecast, but you also have, in terms of management, an ability to make the people that are following you, your team, the team that's working with you, better, more efficient. So that's a true leadership, is that you're making others better. And for that, you need to know them, because not everyone is the same. And that's a massive craftsmanship to get, in order to identify that this person needs this kind of approach. Another person, another team in my team is going to be in a different kind of mindset. So that's what is very difficult. And this is because that's where listening is very important, because you have to talk with them. You have to, which could be regarded as a waste of time sometimes, because when you have lots of urgency, when you have time management, which is very constrained, you need to be accepting that you have to waste a bit of time knowing the people that you work with, because that's going to be critical for trust, of course, but also to make them better. Because if they trust you, if they have faith, a bit of faith in you, then the team is going to work better. So yes, I think you need to spend a bit of time talking with them, talking with your team, and always be aware that it's not important to know who's right in a team, for example, who has the best ideas. It's just to make sure we have the best ideas, that we're going to make sure that the team is going to work to generate the best ideas, the best solutions. So obviously someone has to, but maybe it's going to be this person today, it's going to be another person another day, but we have to be aware of each and everyone's competencies and skills, which might be different, so that the team, the organization is going to generate the best ideas.
Yeah, and I think that spending time with your team is never wasted, it's invested, and a good leader is committed to ongoing professional development of their team. Before we jump into the Q&A, I'm interested in hearing your opinion regarding balancing individual tasks and delegation. What challenges do new leaders face in balancing their own tasks and responsibilities while overseeing the work of their team?
That's the obviously it's a huge challenge, because as a leader you're expected to deliver, you're expected to be successful, and therefore you would tend to allocate a lot of your time to make sure that this success is going to be materialized, it's going to happen. But I think there is also I would say a time issue in that, because when you look at time, you could say time is like a block. For example, there is a 24 hours day, and so you have to allocate time during that period, that day, for example. And you could say the same thing for 1 week or 1 month, whatever the period you have in mind. But then there is also a dynamic vision of time. That is because, especially when you're dealing with a challenging task, which is quite complex. I could take the example of agile methodology, for example, in project management, where basically you have this sort of loop mechanism, which could be regarded as a waste of time, because you spend time to define the problem, then you identify some issues that would make you correct, and define new parameters, and then you spend some more time until you have another loop, and so on. But I think it's an important thing to do, which means that when you deal with a complex project or complex task, you have to go slow first in order to be quick at the end. You have to accept spending a bit of time in the early phase to really understand I would say, the spectrum of the task which is ahead, the key parameters that you have to deal with, the challenges, the people you're going to work with, and to therefore invest a bit by wasting, so to speak, time, by going slow at first. And once everything is set, you can hopefully go much faster afterward. And therefore, time in that case is not a block. It's something dynamic, where what is slow at first is like an investment to be faster at the end. Instead of maybe sometimes rushing to make decision, just like that, in an impulsive way, and figuring out that, it's not going to work out, and you have to redo the whole thing, and you get bogged down. That is, you're super slow because you're really bogged down. It's sort of a quagmire of problems. So I think there must be this vision of, especially when you're dealing with challenging tasks, of this combination of investment, which is time consuming and therefore could be regarded as a waste of time, but is not a waste of time, and the actual actions, which would be much faster, much more efficient once the understanding of the problem you're dealing with would be much clearer.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I see that we also have some questions here from our audience. Hamad is actually asking you how to be a leader in 2023 and 2024, and what are the steps to follow to become a leader?
Okay, so I think it's pretty hard to answer that question, but I would say that it's a very good question, by the way, because and the reason is because the understanding and expectations about leadership are not the same from one place to another. That's and therefore, what you need to do as a learner and as a person aspiring to become a leader is to understand what are the expectations of leadership. What are leaders supposed to do and supposed to be? Because if you look, for example, we have people here from different places and different industries. And if you look at what is a leader, for example, in Norway, in a Norwegian company, or say Scandinavian companies by and large, or a leader in a US company, it's not exactly the same thing. The expectations are not exactly the same. And in Scandinavian nations, for example, leadership is about the ability to compromise, to set up a common ground, to be a very good listener, of course, to make decisions. In the US, you have this emphasis on vision and on being charismatic, on being like a role model for the company. And therefore you would find different definitions of leadership. So the first thing you have to do in terms of how to become a leader in 2023 is what kind of leadership is expected of me, because from one company to another it's not going to be the same thing. So that's the first thing. And then once you have identified the type of leadership which is expected of you, then obviously you have to look at the skill set that you may need to upgrade, to build in order to achieve that role. So as I said, the combination of education and experience, which makes you visible as a potential leader. But the thing is that not everyone, from say Norway to the US to Japan to India, leadership is not understood exactly in the same way. So you need to know what is expected of you. And same thing by industry. From banking to advertising to manufacturing, leadership is not always understood in the same way.
Thank you for sharing. We'll come back to the Q&A, but right now I would like to invite my colleague Bikram Aditya Kapoor, who takes care of programs at Upgrad, to share more about Upgrad's offerings that can equip you with the necessary skills, knowledge, and expertise to successfully lead in this evolving landscape. So Bik, over to you.
Hi guys, sorry, I'm just trying to share my screen so I can also just put up a video we have for the ESGCI program. Before I share any information, I would just like everyone to just watch the video. So yeah. Can you hear it?
Make sure that you share the sound as well, because we can.
I think it is sharing the sound. Is it not, Maribel?
I cannot hear.
Okay. I do not know how to do that. So
Okay.
I will. Okay.
Can you see 3 dots at the top? You just and it says share sound. That should do the trick.
Sound perfect. Thank you so much.
The prestigious Galileo Group of Education, which caters to more than 200,000 students each year through a group of 64 schools with 91 campuses and academic collaborations in more than 13 countries. ESGC High holds the Qualiopi certification, which is awarded to French schools that meet the highest standards of process control and personnel management. ESGCI is also a member of the IACB International Accreditation Body. The DBA program being offered by ESGCI in association with UpGrad brings the best of ESGCI's global pedagogy and faculty with local context and customization through UpGrad's strong network of SMEs and industry experts. The ESGCI School of Management Paris DBA program is a fully fledged doctoral degree, but contrary to the PhD, we focus on professional experience rather than fundamental academic research. The program's primary objective is to develop personal, consultancy, and theoretical skills in the context of rigorous and relevant applied research in business and management. In short, the DBA is about carrying out research for practice. The program has over 200 hours of learning delivered through a combination of recorded content on fundamental topics of research and thesis writing, and live sessions with faculty and experts. Every learner will be provided one-on-one thesis mentorship support from a global pool of experts sourced by ESGCI.
Graduates will have a great competitive advantage in scientific and academic perspective in approaching a complex business environment. More importantly, with many MBAs and masters today, DBA program will equip you with more advanced methods, skills, and tools in specific areas of management or similar discipline.
ESGCI School of Management Paris DBA will definitely help you make a huge leap forward in your career. Thank you for choosing the ESGCI School of Management Paris DBA program.
So I think there's nobody. Sorry. Pause that. So I think there's nobody better to talk about ESGCI than the faculty themselves. And from the video you saw, the ESGCI DBA is for potential leaders or people that want to become leaders in the future. The next cohort of the ESGCI DBA will begin on June 30th, 2023. If you have any questions about it, a colleague of mine will just put the link for the website. We'll put a link for the UpGrad application page and the program page of ESGCI, where you can go get more information as well as drop your information or apply for the program. So you can actually utilize that to take your first steps towards actually pursuing the ESGCI DBA. If you have any questions, I'm always available. But I think while we have Professor Joss or Dr. Joss and Maribel on here, it's best to ask them any questions that you may have. I think that's it from me. Anything that I need to add, Maribel? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Maribel, you're on mute, by the way.
Oh my God, so sorry.
No, all good.
Thanks for letting me know. And I was saying thank you, Vic. I would love to now also share, before we go back to the Q&A, that UpGrad has a referral program that offers cash reimbursement of up to $500. You can now earn money to help upskill and improve the lives of your family, friends, and colleagues when they enroll in any of UpGrad's courses. So my colleague CD will be sharing the link on the comments. Feel free to start referring and earning. On a different note, and we're about to go back to the Q&A, so thank you so much for your patience. Also do note that we have a B2B arm, and when individuals introduce us to their HR department, they can get up to $500 if there is a confirmed deal. So if you're interested in upskilling your people, do reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect you with my colleague Sashi, who takes care of this. And now we're back to the Q&A, and I can see that we have somebody asking, Dr. Jose, thank you, Jose. Thank you for a very informative webinar. Is a leader a role model? Not everyone who leads desires to be a role model. Some simply desire to achieve their objectives.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because there are different leadership styles. And if you look at the academic literature on leadership, it's true that it's not leading to, so to speak, or it's not having the conclusion that there is a one size fits all or one best way of being a leader. And it's true that in some cases, you may need a role model, but in other, it's not the point. It's not what a leader is expected to do. It could be because of culture. It could be because of the type of circumstances in which you are. But it's true that it's not the case that there is just one style of leadership. If you look at there's a lot of research, on leadership. It's one of the topics in business and management, which is seen an extensive body of research over the last decades. And the conclusion is that you have different leadership styles. So you can be a leader and being very different from another leader. Though it's something which has to be understood. There is a diversity in terms of leadership styles, in terms of the type of I would say relationship that you're building with your followers. But I think at the core, there's always this ability to take some risk. There's always this ability to listen to the team that you're leading, and this ability to make people better. Because ultimately, that's what leadership is about. If you're a good leader, you're going to make the followers better. They're going to be energized by you. They're going to be trusting you, and therefore, the company, the team that you're running is going to be more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Feedback is always a blessing. So thank you so much for being with us this session. If you can take 1 minute of your time to give us your feedback about this masterclass, it will mean the world to us. So Siri, please share with everybody the feedback.
Maribel, it'll be right after we end the session. They'll get a pop-up to share their feedback.
Okay, brilliant. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I just see 2 questions in the Q&A chat. If you can read them out, Maribel.
Dr. Jose, I believe I can relate to the point you underscored about leadership is organic. Thank you so much, Rat, for sharing with us. I also have somebody asking, I would like to know if any employee face bullying or feel rejected or micromanaged in his workplace. Is it okay for an individual to raise up? And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely, because that's of course the kind of thing that people will face and will have to deal with. I think the person mentioned the issue of rejection, and I think being turned down, being rejected is part of the experience that you will go through. It's part of, I would say, part of life by and large. And as I said, you have to make sure that it's not going to crush you, but it's going to grow you. It's going to make you a bit stronger. What is not kills you, what's not killing you is making you stronger. But I think the issue of, for example, to voice concern and you have to be also smart in that, because some managers may not have great leadership skills, even though they might have managerial position, and some of them might be quite upset if they're criticized. So you have to understand what type of managers you're dealing with, and if you think that this person is okay to be criticized, you can do it. If not, then you have to find a smarter way to make it visible without basically going into a criticism. So, for example, you would say that I think it could have been better if we did this way, because I could have made that I could have brought that solution, a bit earlier. And in order to show that there was a different way of doing it, and maybe the manager would say, okay, yeah, that could have been better. And therefore then you could step up and say, okay, then maybe for the next time we could organize this way, and that could be more efficient. So yes, you have to voice your concern, but do it in a very smart way, not to get burned, because not everyone is willing to be criticized. So you have to be very, very smart in that. But there are multiple ways of expressing a concern, and therefore you have to find the right kind of communication to make your concern, make your legitimate concern be heard.
Thank you. We also have Kuntal asking, what should be a leadership strategy in IT technology sector where technology is evolving continuously?
Oh, wow. So that's, yeah, I mean, it's very challenging because it's true that technology is evolving very quickly. And you have so much, so much to say, because when you look about the last 20 years, you have great companies, great success stories at one period of time, and bust at some point. For some of you might remember, for example, I know Research in Motion, the BlackBerry, for example, or even before that, the Palm as a organizer. I mean, those industry were wiped out because of technological change. And so when you're in IT, you have always this sort of anguish, this fear that you could be superseded by something else, by something that you're not seeing, that you could be blindsided, basically, by events that you're not controlling, or technology you're not controlling. And therefore, leadership has to be very much about awareness of what's going on around you. You need to know your people, you need to know your organization, you need to know your numbers, but you need to know you need to have like antennas, like an insect, just to figure out what's going on in the world, because it could be so quick. When you look at some of those companies, Palm, for example, basically disappeared. BlackBerry, not really, it's not the same company as it used to. We talk about Kodak, you have so many of those examples. And also be aware of the market structures, and when you're dealing with companies which have some monopoly powers or quasi-monopoly powers, how you can deal with them. If you can't beat them, then join them. That also could be one way, one approach. But yes, be aware of what's going on. And one point is, for example, when you always have some trends and some waves in terms of technology, and in terms, therefore, most successful companies. Just to give you an example, if you look at the 10 most valuable companies decade by decade, say over the last 50 years, you would find different companies almost all the time. So if you take the 10 most valuable companies as measured by market capitalization in the 1980s, the 1990s, in the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, it's not going to be the same thing. It's not the same list, and it's because the underlying circumstances and the underlying economic forces have been different and have selected new types of companies. So be aware of that in tech, and therefore the successful companies of today may not be the successful companies of tomorrow. And therefore look at what kind, for example, people would say that maybe the crypto, the blockchain technology could be much more than just cryptocurrencies. It could be a game changing in terms of the way we store information, the way we sign contracts, the way we interact between companies, and that could challenge quite significantly the existing dominant companies in tech, like Google, for example.
Absolutely. We have Josefina asking, is there any course of recommendation that I can take to develop myself and grow professionally as a leader?
Well, obviously you have different ways of doing it. There are some executive leadership, courses that are offered by Brad and other companies. So that's one way. You look at some executive certificates. Obviously, you also have programs such as the one I'm heading, for example, because when you go for a DBA, which is a research-driven program, which is an applied research-driven program, because DBA is focusing on applied research. It's about connecting academia, bridging the gap between academia and practice. Then obviously you could look at that as a way to build leadership skills. Number one, because you have to manage your time very strictly. You have to be extremely disciplined to be successful. Number two, because you have a program where basically you have to produce some kind of knowledge, some kind of new knowledge, and therefore to think outside the box. That's basically what makes a doctoral degree special, is that you're expected to bring something to the table. You're expected to look at problems in a different way and to learn to think in a critical way. This idea of thinking outside the box, not taking everything for granted. And I think it's key for leadership. You need to have this mindset of seeing things that others are not able to see, to see through the problems. And for that, to see through the problems, you need to have this ability to think outside the box. And I think the DBA program is providing you with this kind of skill set, because you have to deal with research material where you could have sometimes contradictions. You could have different ways of looking at the world, different ways of looking at problems, and that could be extremely, I would say, gratifying for a leader, because you have like different lenses that you can use to look at problems and to solve them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Sidi, if now you could launch the feedback poll or send the feedback link.
There's no link, Maribel. As soon as we end the session, they'll see a pop-up on their screen.
Okay, got it. So in that case, I really hope that this masterclass has stimulated insightful discussions that enable you to gain deeper understanding of how to navigate leadership transitions, and that the key takeaways have been insightful for you and helpful. Before we wrap up, I would like to thank Dr. Jose for being an amazing guest speaker, as well as my colleague Speak for sharing about our relevant programs out of grad, and then Sidi also for supporting us with the Q&A and feedback form. So last but not least, I would like to thank you all for taking the time and attending today's session, and see you on our next masterclass. Make sure to follow us on all our social media at Grad International to stay in the know and continue learning from our global pool of subject matter experts. Thank you so much, and see you next masterclass. Please remember to answer the feedback.